Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sarah Berry Show. I am Sarah Berry, and we are back for another episode. And I am really excited about this one. I put a lot of thought behind this. It's one of those things that kind of came out of nowhere as an idea when you least expect it. So this is going to be a fun one. But for those of you that are just listening and not watching, this is a time that you probably want to jump over to YouTube because I've got a little funny thing in store. So if you're listening, great, but there's a funny little thing coming up here in just a minute that you're going to want to jump over to YouTube and see. So before we get started, I just want everybody to take a big breath. Who is starting school this week? I know our household is starting school and we have been off to the races. And I love August. It's the best part of the summer. It's hot. It's starting to get a little dark and a little cool in the evenings. It's a really great time of year. But more than anything, I don't really think of myself as the biggest routine person, but oh boy, did we need to get a routine back at our house this year. So I'm sorry, kids, if you're sad to go back to school, we're sad too, but I don't think it hurts anybody to get back into a little bit of a routine. So if you haven't started yet, I know that you're as busy as I was a couple of days ago, rounding up the last of the school supplies and all the details to get everything going. So hang in there, moms and dads, you're going to make it. But with that being said, August in many ways, especially I think if you are a person working from home or an entrepreneur and you're juggling home life and kids and all those things, sometimes I think, and maybe it doesn't necessarily mean August, it just means when your kids go back to school and you have a quiet house again, or maybe a little pocket of time that you're finally able to focus on your business. August can feel in many ways like a second January, or at least it does to me, because I feel like it's almost a fresh, clean slate. We get to kind of reflect on maybe what some of our goals were at the beginning of the year, look at where we've come, look at where we have to go, and just kind of gear up to make the end of the year end with a bang and on a really positive high note. So I know, at least for me, August can be a time of just revisiting some of the things that I wanted to get accomplished in the year. And I'm going to be really honest, I am the world's worst at making New Year's resolutions. Can I get an amen? Can you raise your hand and tell me if you're with me? I love goals and I love to be headed in a forward positive direction, but I am not somebody who really makes hard and fast resolutions because, let's be honest, I love Doritos and I can't go very long without Doritos or chips and salsa. I mean, that's my love language. So anyway, whoever's with me, it's okay. It's okay. We can worry about the Doritos later. But anyway, look at August sometimes as a clean slate and just a chance to kind of refocus and get back on track. So that leads me to today's topic. And I have titled this podcast, X Marks the Spot. And for any of you at any time that have ever used a map or have had to give directions, you know that's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you hear me say X marks the spot. But I have a really great experience that just, like I said, this idea kind of came out of nowhere and it just really hit me in the guts. And I thought, I just really want to share thoughts on this with my audience. So I have had the privilege before school started to go on a once in a lifetime trip with my family. And it was part work for my husband's business and part play. So we extended a little bit and got to visit the most magical place on earth. So if you are watching me on YouTube, you will see what my souvenir was from this place. So any of you that know what the most magical place on earth knows that Disneyland or Disney World is that place. You guys, it was a dream come true. And anybody that gets to go back, if you've ever been, first of all, stop what you're doing and go. If you haven't had the chance to go, it is for people ages 9 to 90 and everywhere before and after and in between. It is an absolute amazing experience, and nobody does it like Disney. They make everybody feel welcome. It is truly magical. So stop what you're doing and go if you haven't yet. But it was just something that I have always had in my mind that someday, if I had the privilege of being a mom, that I wanted to take my kids. And so it was a dream come true trip for us. We had an absolute ball. We walked an average of 20,000 steps a day. So that was a lot of walking, but it is a memory that we will all have for the rest of our lives. But it was really interesting. There was kind of this underlying theme throughout our days. Actually, we got to go to Disney World and Universal Studios in Orlando, all in the same trip. But everywhere we went, we needed to know, first of all, where we were and where we were going. And they, of course, they make these really great apps and things for your phone now where you can download apps and track where you're at and pull up wait times and all of these really fancy things. But we used it as an experience to teach our kids how to read a map while we were there. And so that is what the topic of today's podcast is going to be about. So goals. Where are you headed? Where have you come from? What do you want to do? What do you want to do with this business? What do you want to do with this one life that we get? So I'm going to jump right in and say, this trip to Disney World started with a change jar, just an old water, those water containers that you flip upside down. And I had an empty one of those jugs that I've had since I was a teenager. And I have always put my change in this change jar, knowing that I would save up for a trip or an adventure sometime in my life. And so I'm 100 years old now. So that change jar was getting really full. So in the week before the trip, I had my two boys lay a blanket out on the carpet and they emptied out all of the change and just counted up what was there. And then I had the privilege of just splitting it between them. And that was some of their spending money. So it was a really neat kind of end to one goal to let them have this money and to spend it. But anyway, so we had this change jar, we counted it all up, we got ready for our trip. Well, the first day at Disney World, right through when you get through the gate, first of all, there's a ton of people. But second of all, the first thing you really want to try to do is orient yourself. And it just really made me think a lot about goal setting is, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? What is in store for yourself or for your business? And getting that really clear, we've heard that acronym SMART goals, which are specific and measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. I believe that all of those things are very important. But I think the things that rise to the top for me about it is you got to know where you are and you got to know where you're headed. And so we took the opportunity early on to get just a good old fashioned paper map. And we taught both of my boys how to read the map because of course, everybody knows you got to go to Splash Mountain early or you end up standing in a 2-hour line. And that is no joke, my friends. So like I said, if you have not gone yet, prepare yourself. You will stand in a lot of lines. But what happened was, they would open this map and they had kind of a list of an idea of what rides they wanted to ride and what they wanted to see, but it didn't make any sense until they determined exactly where we were standing as it related to the map. So it reminds me of this speech by Abraham Lincoln, who is really one of my favorite idols in history, about his true north speech. And I'm going to read it to you right now. And I promise all of this is going to tie together, but this is what he said. A compass I learned when I was surveying, it'll point you true north from where you're standing, but it's got no advice about the swamps and desert and chasm that you'll encounter along the way. If in pursuit of your destination, you plunge ahead, heedless of obstacles and achieving nothing more than to sink in a swamp, what's the use of knowing true north? So the way that kind of comes around is, you have this map and you have a compass, but if you don't know how to put the two together, it makes it really hard to know where you're headed. And let's be honest, friends, being an entrepreneur can feel like you have a compass and no map. Most of the time, that's how it feels, as you can hold that compass and you can see what direction it's pointed. But if you don't have anything relative to tie it to, or any direction or metrics or numbers or things that you have as a goal for your business, a compass can be just as useless by itself as a map is useless by itself. So we started out by teaching our boys the first thing you want to do is find out where you're standing. And thankfully, a lot of these apps, of course, they have the little, pin that shows you where you are. But they got really good at realizing, You don't always necessarily even have to start at the beginning. You don't always have to go clockwise. You don't have to go the direction that everybody else goes. As long as you know where you want to start and you can identify that and then figure out the direction you want to go. I tell you what, for being 11 and 12, those boys learned a lot about how to navigate. And it was really fun to see over just the 3 or 4 days that we were there, how they got really good at orienting themselves. In fact, they don't tell them I admitted this, but they got better than mom at many of the rides and things that we were trying to find. They got to where they could just snap right around and get us right where we needed to go. So, like I said, it's funny how these life experiences kind of come up and they overlay so much about what we do in our day-to-day lives. And if you have a map, that's great. If you have a compass, that's great, but you need to help them work in tandem with each other, just like your goals do. So I want to leave you with these 3 thoughts. Number 1, you got to use the correct map for the goal that you have for yourself. So what would have happened if we had gone to Disney World with a Universal Studios map? Wouldn't have worked very well. So you will hear me say time and time and time again, make your own goals. Don't follow anybody else's, put on your blinders and make sure that it's appropriate for you. Use your own map and make sure it's the map for the direction that you want to go. Number 1. Number 2, X marks the spot. Know where you are and know where you're going. Have a map and have a compass. They are both great instruments to have, but alone, they don't work as well as if they do together. So just like in goals, know where you are and know where you're headed. And then number 3, how fun is it to have a map and to take out the old Sharpie or the little pins and pin along the way where you've gone? So number 3 is record the progress. And you guys, I promise it will amaze you how far you've come. When I started my business, it was literally a single little 3-ring notebook that I would record my daily activities. And I know that is so rudimentary compared to probably what some of you started out doing, but it worked for me. And I will always keep that notebook. I go back and I see where I would record my sales. I recorded which customer contacted me, any kind of interaction I had or orders that I needed to fulfill or notes that I had. And it's fascinating to me to look now where I am compared to that notebook. And that's the great thing about a map. Have you ever been somewhere where they tell you to plot where you're from? And you look at this map and it's full of all of these pins from all of these places. Or my next door neighbor is an avid hiker and he has mapped every trail and every mile that he has ever hiked in his entire life. What a rich, amazing thing that is to look back. It gives you such a reference point on the days, especially that you feel like you haven't come very far, to look back and see just how far you've come. So number 1, use the correct map for you. Number 2, know where you are and where you're headed. And number 3, record. That information will be so useful to you someday. So I want to leave you with this, that change jar that I started all those years ago. When we got home from our trip, I told my boys, it's time to clean out the suitcases and all the yucky stuff that nobody wants to do when they come home from vacation. And it was the most heartwarming thing to know that my youngest son emptied out the little carry-on that he had for the airplane. And at the bottom was some of the loose change that he had left over from some of that souvenir money. And the first thing that he said he wanted to do with that is start a new change jar. So my friends, you never know when some of these small little day-to-day silly things that you are doing are going to influence someone's future. So we put that change in a brand new jar and we are planning our next adventure. So I hope you're doing the same thing. I hope this was helpful. Again, if you're not following me on YouTube, go visit me over there, Sarah Berry and Company. I'm so grateful for those of you that are tuning in episode after episode and supporting this little tiny dream that I have. And I just really hope it's serving you. So feedback is helpful. please share, help a girl out, pass the word, let people know if there's anybody that's interested at all in learning how to run a business or build a dream from their kitchen table. This is the place. So until next time, my friends, I will see you, and I will be the one wearing these cute Minnie Mouse ears in case you're wondering, for a long time to come. So have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.